The rod and reel combination, Trey, is one that I will take on any river for any trout anywhere in the world and feel 100% confident that it can hold, that it can catch, hold, fight, and bring fish into hand.
Hey, Trey, Kistler with Kistler Rod and Reels. I'm here with my brother and friend Jeremiah Bakk, professional guide, pretty much been fishing all of his life. And we're here today in Colorado on the South Platte River using our new rod and reels. Really exciting moment for me. It's a 20-year in the making process. He's helped to develop these, design them, draw up the reel, and give me the specs on the rod that we want, the type of guide, the spacing, the shape of the handle. And after maybe a year and a half of designs and testing and back and forth, we finalized what we think is one of the most light and sensitive fly rods and reels on the market today.
You asked me, come up with your ideal trout rod and your ideal trout reel. And so I thought, well, what do I need this rod to do, right? I need this rod to do a little of everything. I need it to be able to catch these highly technical trout here on the South Platte in Colorado, but I also need to take this rod, reel, and for it to be able to hold on to giant fish on the windswept rivers of the North Platte in Wyoming. Yeah, you and I working together has been super fun because I think you pressed into me and challenged me to get creative with the design, as well as, in my mind, being able to keep the absolute essential features on this reel to make it the most lightweight, incredibly durable, hyper strong, and really flawless reel.
Talk about the stealth.
Well, that's exactly it. So out here on the South Platte, these trout are incredibly sensitive to overhead pressure, people walking by. So when you're casting close by, everything's pretty close proximity when you're fishing to these trout here on the South Platte. So what we wanted to do was create something that a trout hunter is going to be able to use effectively. So we have actually an unsanded matte gray blank, which is not going to create high glare when you're casting over top of really spooky fish. And also cuts down a little bit on the weight because you're not adding excessive amounts of finish and paint. Exactly. Another thing with stealth, we wanted to make the reel a matte finish rather than a high gloss, bright chrome finish. So the reel itself is designed to match its surroundings. When you're fishing in the shadows, there should be nothing about this that shines a giant spotlight over a fish as you're casting. And I think we accomplished that really, really well. It's got type 3 anodization, which means it's gonna last. I've been fishing actually the prototype reel for almost 2 years. Did a drop test on it, fully loaded with backing, 100 yards of backing, a full 90-foot fly line. I dropped it 4 times at 4 feet on concrete and wanted to see if it was gonna shift or dent or unbalance the reel in any way, shape, or form. So after each drop, I put it back on the reel, I spun it, I made sure that nothing was scratching or scraping, there was no grinding of the gears internally. And so what you're seeing and what we're experiencing fishing is something that is incredibly durable. In fact, I lost a fish down there, threw my rod into the bushes, and I knew it was gonna be fine, right? Because the rod and reel are built to last. I mean, they are built to take an absolute beating and continue to fish just beautifully. So really love how everything turned out. We've got single foot guides going all the way up to the rod tip. That cuts down on excessive amounts of weight with extra wire on snake guides. Yeah, also one of the really cool features about single foot guides is you have a very low footprint. So any place where there's a guide being tied, you have the entire flex of the rod working really, really well. When you start to add 2 feet on snake guides all the way up, now you're changing the action of the blank. So you might get a fast action blank, add a bunch of guides to it, and now you've changed the action slightly. Single foot guides reduce that effect and allow the blank to perform at its highest function. The balance point on these rods and reels is perfect. When you've got fly line out and some weight out of the end of your rod, your balance point is right where your hand naturally goes, so you don't have hardly any fatigue throughout the course of a day casting over and over and over and over.
Real proud of our craftsmen and women building these by hand in my shop there in Magnolia, Texas, one at a time, very carefully. We've chosen a more vintage look with these oranges and yellow threads. This is based on a coloring of a fly rod that my pawpaw had from the 50s. And so he was a big fly fisherman, trout fisherman himself, so I wanted to kind of make it look like one of his rod, but a little more modern with the burl cork that matches the color here. We're talking about these guys, these recoil REC guides, you know, they're titanium nitride, so they bend, bounce back in place. These are never gonna break off on you. Inserts aren't gonna pop out. Just a well-made lifetime purchase.
Absolutely.
You know, something you can hand down to your son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter. Masterpiece in my opinion. More to come. Different powers. We've got a 5 and a 6 weight that we finalized. 6 weight is fast and the 5 weight is a medium fast. So for different techniques.
Yeah, with those actions, the fast action rod is going to be your choice. If you're going to a large river, you need to cast into the wind, you need to throw streamers, you need to throw huge hoppers or hopper dropper combinations. That's going to be your 6 weight, your fast action. That's also going to have enough sensitivity in that tip to land those tiny tricos 20 feet out, 30 feet out to those rising trout. So you're going to have that 6 weight to be able to run the entire gambit, casting tiny dries all the way to fishing those giant articulated streamers to those large predatory trout. That 5 weight is a medium fast action, as you mentioned, Trey, and that 5 weight medium fast is going to be beautiful for the entire range of applications. Casting dry flies all day long, casting a double nymph rig with an indicator and some split shot, casting light streamers. I've even casted some big articulated streamers just to see how it performed. It performed admirably because of the stiffness in this butt. When you really activate that rod, it's almost as though it's not so much of a slingshot motion, but when you load that rod with that big heavy streamer deep into this butt section, that butt section just performs beautifully and just carries that fly and zips it out. The tip is not mushy on either one of these actions. The tip is extremely responsive. One of the things, Trey, that it had to do for me was fish light tippets. Here in Colorado, we fish in the wintertime 7, sometimes 8x fluoro tippet. That is just like a spider web, like a piece of silk. Fishing tiny little flies. When you hook a big trout, that like living here in the South Platte here, you hook a tiny trout on that light tippet, that tip has got to hold. It can't be so stiff that it breaks those flies off. And I tested these things in the middle of winter on several occasions here on the South Platte over the course of a couple of different years, fishing this river in particular. And you have to have a tip like these rods in order to hold those fish on with 7 and 8X.
I was going to tell you one of the reasons they are so responsive to the light line is they're 100% carbon. It's extreme high modulus. There's no fiberglass to give it weight, or give it a noodle feel. Real starchy and stiff, but that gives it that lightweight sensitive. So you were talking about you can feel the strike when you're nipping on the 5 weight, and you can't see the strike, but you can feel it, and that's hard to come by on a lot of fly rods. So the lighter, the more sensitive, the better. What about that reel? This was a great design by you. You're talking about the sealed carbon drags in there that are real smooth with the clicker.
Yeah, just a slight sound on the drag as well as on the retrieve. Nothing that's going to be too obtrusive. Also, again, a bit of that stealth factor. You don't want to have. It's really nice sometimes on old antique reels to have that really loud click, or even on a click and pawl reel. Those are nice to have their place, but this reel is designed for a wide range of drag strength. from zero drag, almost free spooling. You just hit that handle and that's gonna zip right off of there. But you can crank this down to almost a dead stop if you need to hold the most powerful fish on this rod. And these were tested on 2-foot long trout on the North Platte River in Wyoming. And I didn't even have to crank the drag all the way down to hold those fish and bring them all the way to the net without much of a fight. So I tried hard to break these rods and to destroy the drag, and I could not do it. So that's a testament to it.
Yeah.
Also, low startup inertia on these drags, so that if you hook a fish and you've got a little bit of slack and that fish hits the end of that line, you don't want it wrenching on your drag and coming up to speed really slowly. You want that low startup inertia, which means it immediately hits the drag and smoothly pulls off. And these rags do that incredibly well. They are the best reels that I've ever fished in terms of low startup inertia. The drag is extremely smooth. You don't have to worry about it. Again, the rod and reel combination, Trey, is one that I will take on any river for any trout anywhere in the world and feel 100% confident that it can hold, that it can catch, hold, fight, and bring fish into hand.
Great balance.
It's awesome.
Too, they pair precisely to balance, and that's the important factor. A really light reel is needed with a really light rod.
Correct.
A couple of the reasons why I'm getting back into the fly rod business. I started building fly rods when I first started the business back in 1999, 2000. I really enjoyed that, but didn't know much about fly fishing in general. Just knew how to build the rods. And so I kind of set that on the shelf. And we got really busy with bass rods, saltwater, bait casting, spinning rods, and been doing that for over 20 years now. And so I thought it was about time to introduce some fly rods. So I needed somebody that I could trust to help me do it, because I couldn't do it all alone. Because I've only been around fly streams, trout streams, maybe a half dozen times with guides and my sons, and had a lot of fun. So it's something new to me that I enjoy. It's interesting, something that I love to learn more about. And so then I contacted Mr. Jeremiah here to help me get it done. So over the last couple of years, it's been a challenge, but it's been rewarding. Today and this week we've been using our rods that we designed, and they're just performing so well, catching big. I caught my largest was around 23 in the rainbow a couple days ago in the North Platte, and to do it on a rod that me and my crew built and you designed is really special. And so again, my papa was a big trout fisherman, loved doing it on the fly, and I never got to do it with him. And so building these rods, kind of the coloring of his rod in memory of him, it's real special. So I can't wait to get them on the market and see you guys sharing pictures and stories of your success and your personal best out there. So that's kind of why I do it, is for myself, for others, and a little bit of sentimental. And it's just about time for our business to expand into different species, different types of rods. So looking forward to saltwater fly rods next, and whatever else is next.
Absolutely.